Are you imperfect at your carnivore diet, your keto diet, your proper human diet, whatever it is? How dare you mess up? Kind of seems a little silly, doesn't it? Let's talk about it. All right, y'all, this is a subject matter that I think is really important to discuss when it comes to keto diets, carnivore diets, any kind of proper human diet, wherever you are on the spectrum. Perfection as the enemy of progress, especially important for people who are maybe not really stable on the carnivore diet, or people who are just starting out with keto, or whatever, wherever it is you fall on this spectrum of the proper human diet and however far into it you are, there are going to be moments where you are not perfect. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that I made when I first tried carnivore and I did really well and then I went off the rails is I tried to push myself to be perfect all the time. And I lived in fear of anything that might not be perfect. And I understand where this comes from for some people, because when you start doing carnivore or you start doing keto or whatever it is you're doing and you feel weight is coming off your body, you feel pain starting to go away, you see health issues reversing, you see all of these positive things, you immediately get, I think, very concerned that those will go away and that you won't be able to get them back because it's something you haven't had for a long time, or maybe it's something you've never had, or whatever your case may be, and you're just so attached to the idea of I'm miserable, feeling sick or overweight or struggling or whatever it is. I just want to feel better. I don't want this to go away. I don't want this to turn into something that I had and I lost it. I don't want to screw it up. And there's a lot of pressure from the world around you to be perfect at this. You have to look skinny enough or else it's not real. We get this all the time. People talking about how both of us don't look like we're on keto or carnivore or we're overweight or any of these things. Because never mind the fact that between the two of us, we've lost a total of about 230 pounds.
Right.
It's, we don't measure up to some standard. So obviously what we're doing is not working, or we're not good enough, or we don't have anything valuable to say, or whatever, right? It's just crazy. So you get those kinds of pressures around you. You get the pressure of all of the influencers that are on social media with six packs and tell you how great their life is and how you can have it too if you just do it perfect like them and all that kind of stuff. And I've realized a lot of that is a bunch of BS anyway. I don't think a lot of those people are even doing it perfect the way they try to present themselves as doing it. You start to realize when you pay attention to other influencers out there that they look like they have these beautiful, pretty lives where they go to these amazing places and they do these amazing things and everything is perfect in their life and their diet is perfect and whatever. And then eventually you give them a little bit of time and some rope and they'll hang themselves and you'll realize they're not perfect and they're not coming up with any of their own things or doing any of their own things or anything. So you get pressure from people that aren't real.
Yeah.
And they act like they've got this all figured out and they put pressure out there, whether it's intentional or not, they put pressure on you to do this perfect. You get people all around you that are saying this isn't going to work. And if anything even slightly seems like it's going to backslide, they use it immediately as proof that they were right. Because a lot of people tend to care more about being right in their own ego than they care about seeing you get healthy. Not because they are consciously doing that necessarily. It's just part of us being human, where we have sensitive egos and we don't want to have to be proven wrong. You have to deal with those kinds of things. You have to deal with other people in the community who are so proud of their success, which there's nothing wrong with being proud of your success. Go celebrate your success on keto or carnivore. But you have other people in the community that are so proud of it, they think their way of doing it is what's going to work for everybody because they can't imagine that somebody else's body may react a little differently to various adjustments than what theirs does. Now, we deal with this somewhat in our community. Sometimes I have people who, even though they watch all my videos and they're supportive of us, they like to get critical about, well, Chris, you shouldn't be doing that, or, Ash shouldn't be doing such and such, or whatever. And it's based off of their own experience and what works best for them. And they can turn very critical very quickly, even meaning well. They can turn very critical very quickly. So you're going to have people around you that see what you're doing and say, well, that's not the way I do it, so therefore it must be wrong. So that's something else you're going to have to deal with. So all of this is to say, There is so much pressure from so many different places in life, not just with your health, but with so many things in life, that you're supposed to be perfect. And you're supposed to measure up to all of the things around you, be it family, friends, influencers, whatever. And unfortunately, I find what happens, and what happened to me and what happens to so many people, is that perfection starts to become the enemy of progress. Mm-hmm. And instead of doing something to make yourself a little better each day, I'm going to add a few hundred steps to my walk every day. I'm going to reduce my carbs by 1 or 2 grams a day. I'm going to have 4 carnivore meals instead of all keto meals this week if my goal is to become carnivore. Like these little steps you can take.
Yeah.
Little things you can do to get a little bit better. We stop doing that because the only thing we can see is the thing at the end of the journey, which is what we're trying to get to, and we see that compared to what we are. And if we can't go from here to here, if we can't go from point A to point B, from I'm on a standard American diet to I'm a perfect meat, salt, water carnivore, if that's what your goal is, and if we can't stay there once we go ahead and try to make that leap, then obviously we're failing, we're worthless, we're terrible, we should just give up. I'm not as good as this person on Instagram. I can't do it like this person in that Facebook group. I'm not as good at this doctor. I'm not as good as this person over here. Whatever the case is, we see that comparison, and it's the only thing we can be focused on. So instead of taking little steps, which is what all of those other people have to do in their own lives to make progress,
right,
we only see the perfection that we feel like we can't achieve, and therefore we end up giving up, or we set ourselves up and try to take off too big of a bite, and we just can't chew our way through it. I heard this thing on social media, and I can't remember exactly who this was right now, but I remember the quote stuck with me. If you try to take off too big of a bite, if you try to bite off more than you can chew, you get exhausted trying to chew it, and you eventually have to stop eating, and you can't chew your way through life any further. And I thought that was such a great picture. You get so exhausted trying to chew your way through all of the things you can't do,
right,
because you took off too big of a bite in the first place, that then you finally just stop eating entirely, and you can't make any progress whatsoever, and so you starve.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that is what is the downfall of so many things, not just health, businesses, personal growth in your own life, your emotional and mental health, like all these different things. We try to go too far, too fast. And there's nothing wrong with going at whatever rate you can handle and doing the best you can as quickly as you can, for sure. Change overnight if you can, and stay that way if you can. But if you think that you're backsliding or you're struggling with something, beating yourself up for the fact that you can't achieve perfection means that you're not going to take the time to do the steps that give you progress.
Yeah.
You right now are not what you will be in a year if you just do little things every day. Mm-hmm. If you just take small steps. I am not today what I will be a year from now. I will be better a year from now because I'm going to do little things. I don't care if people come on the channel and point out the fact that I still have weight to lose and tell me I'm fat. I don't care. They can't see all of the progress I've made and how it's happening a little at a time. The only thing they can see is I don't measure up to some level of perfection they expect me to be before, in their estimation, I have any value. And if you define yourself by how other people expect you to measure up to perfection, you will never be good enough for anyone, anywhere, in any way. And that's just ridiculous. What are your thoughts on this? I know you have lots of thoughts on progress over perfection.
I really do. I really do. Well, I think, even just taking, kind of like the weight loss and everything out of it, I watch a lot of like interviews and podcasts and different things that talk about like time management, because being an independent artist, being a musician, it's like I have to run my own website and social media and marketing and write songs. And, we have to wear a lot of hats, and being a YouTuber is very similar. But maybe some tips and tricks, though, that, I've heard people say that have helped me is like, let's say, for example, that your goal is you want to lose 100 pounds, right? Well, that's awesome. A lot of people come January 1 will write goals for this year, lose 100 pounds. Well, for starters, that's not probably very realistic, right? A year is a long time, but it could take maybe a couple years to lose that amount of weight. So also, what are you going to do to lose that 100 pounds? Are you going to eat a carnivore diet? Are you going to run? Are you no one ever, they write down goals, but they never are clear on how they're actually going to reach and achieve the goal. Mm-hmm. And so what I've actually done for years, which I find helpful, and maybe this will help everyone watching kind of get in a mindset of just getting organized and having a clear, realistic goal with their health and with their diet and steps that you can do. I actually don't do like year-long goals and resolutions. I do quarterly ones. So basically every few months I sit down and I look at, say the next 3 months and I go, what do we have going on and what are our goals? And so maybe I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months. And so I'll put on there, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go carnivore for 30 days in this month. And then, I'm going to start maybe walking more or cut back on this, or, I really don't want to have coffee. So I'm going to start leaning back my coffee intake. But whatever your goals are, I think that you can actually make them smaller. And then give yourself actual things that you're going to do and just start implementing those every single day. And that is honestly, if you think about it, how major corporations run. It's how a lot of businesses approach all of these things. And that's why I think they're so successful at what they do, because they're daily getting up and they're daily doing things to improve their health, their mind, their business, all of these different things. And I think, trying to get your health back wherever you're at on your health journey, whatever your goals are, I think it's just important, one, to be realistic, break it down in the smaller ones, but clearly have mapped out, these are the things that I'm going to start working on every single day. And then when you reach that point of success, great. The next 3 months, we sit down and here's your new list of goals. And every day you just implement those things. And you're not going to be perfect at them. And you're going to have days that you're going to mess up and fall off the wagon. And that's okay. Like, it happens. But the thing is you just go right back to doing what you're doing. So that's actually, though, how you make progress happen. That's how you reach goals and get things done. It's not by wishing and hoping and trying to lose however much weight or trying to get to meat, salt, water, whatever your goal is. It's like, it's kind of sad because it's just very unrealistic expectations sometimes. And we put all that on ourselves. And then we just get super stressed out and we're miserable the whole time. So it's, I totally agree with what you're saying, but hopefully that's some organization kind of tips that I've heard lots of entrepreneurs and successful business people talk about with business. And I think you could easily take that concept and break it down on into the carnivore diet.
There are a few people in the world that are capable of doing something like switching from a standard American diet one day to a lion diet of meat, salt, like red meat, salt, and water the next day.
Yeah, I would not be one of those people.
I'm not either. There's a small handful of people that can do that. For everyone else, which is the majority of the world, that is not going to work because our psychology as humans doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And no matter how much somebody says, oh, you just have to have willpower, they just beat you up for not being as mentally strong as they are. I have my own thoughts on whether that has anything to do with mental strength or not, but that's a different discussion. But even if that was the case, that doesn't solve the problem. And it is that attitude of do it this way, force yourself to do it in the way that I think you should do it, and if you can't, then you deserve to burn. Yeah. That attitude is what causes so much failure, not just with health, with business, with personal relationships, with personal goals, with whatever you've got going on in your life. That attitude causes so much failure. It did for me for a long time.
I also think 2 things, if I can add on. One, to someone who has worked on their health journey, even if it was pretty much overnight, to where you're able to eat just perfect meat, salt, water all the time, and you never cheat, and you're perfect. Like, awesome, like, good for you. But for the people that have the attitude towards people that want to maybe start carnivore and they want to get healthy and they want to do all these things, and especially if they're coming from a standard American diet, you should probably understand that it has nothing to do with who's better or who has more willpower or who's stronger. But it's like, people on a standard American diet, myself included, especially back in the day, like, I had so much brain fog and I had so much stuff going on that I was struggling just to don't drink alcohol, eat meat heavy keto. Like, I was just struggling to do the basics of things. I just think that's just that goes back to that unrealistic expectation, but it's nothing to do with being better. Also, I remember one time we were talking about seed oils and how they're terrible. And you and I were talking about how, clearly on carnivore and all, we don't do that. And I remember kind of like we were talking about it. And then I remember I pulled chapstick out of my pocket one day, and I was feeling really good because it's like, look at me, I don't have any seed oils in my diet. I'm doing really great. And I remember picking up the chapstick and I put it on my lips and I kind of like turned it around for some reason. And I just started reading what was in it. And I realized soybean oil. and so I'm like, wow. So, I think there's things like that where maybe like things like shampoos, household cleaners, chapstick, just things that we use every day that maybe we don't even think about because they're not food, are in our household and in our, they're being put into our bodies and being absorbed. And so, that was a goal for me where it's like, well, hey, now that I know this information, I'm going to work on going through the house and getting rid of these things. But it's like that took time and it took steps. I mean, you have to, but again, we made progress.
Right.
It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't perfect, but hey, now we know what we need to do to fix it.
We also still don't have a perfectly clean house. There are still things in our diets, in our lives with, shampoo or like, bathroom type stuff or different things like that may have some seed oils or some chemicals or things that we don't always like. And we minimize that as much as possible. Here's another thing. Buying all of the natural products that have none of that kind of stuff, like we don't have the budget to overnight start spending twice the amount of money that we do on household items.
No.
So we can work in that direction, but unless you want to live on the street in a box because you've lost everything out of a insistence that it all has to happen right now overnight and you can't go through a transition period, sometimes you have to take a little bit more of a step-by-step approach. And I think that having realistic approaches to these things, having realistic goals, like you said, that you can set for yourself, and more importantly, knowing what steps you're going to take to get to that goal. If you have a goal and you can't sit and look at that and say, well, if this is my time frame to achieve it, here's all the steps going backwards to present day that I'm going to use to get to that point. If you can't do that, it's probably too big of a goal to do in that way. Now you can have a really big lofty goal, but then you need to have smaller goals that are behind it.
Right.
And you need to figure out, well, what are the steps to get me to each of those? And then how would I go from this one to the next one and this one to the next one? And then that would all lead me to the big one. I do this with guitar students with their guitar progress all the time. Figure out where you want to be and what time frame you want to be. Go backwards to present day and put all of your waypoints along the way, smaller achievable goals, and put together the steps that it takes to hit each of those goals at certain time frames. Because one, that gives you a clear path of what you're going to do. And two, if you get to that time frame and you haven't met that goal, you know that you're not keeping up with what you had set for yourself, and that's okay. Which means we either adjust our process of getting to the next goal so that we make up the time, or, and this is something you have to be willing to accept sometimes, we take that bigger goal and we move the timeline further out so that we can say, you know what, it's taking me longer and more work to do this than I thought it would. That's okay, but I'm going to move it back because now I have a more realistic understanding of how long that may take.
And there's nothing wrong with that because I guarantee you, all the health problems that we all have from years and years, most of our lives, eating a standard American diet and, just all the things that we've done to our bodies, that we didn't get this way overnight. It took years and years and years. So guess what? It may take you longer than you would want to then lose the weight and to let your body heal. And also, to an extent, that's something you just really can't control. Your body will heal when it wants to heal and it will do what it's going to do. And you just got to show up, do what you can, and trust the process, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you guys also need to understand, if people are yelling about the whole meat, salt, water thing, or these kinds of things where they're saying, you have to be perfect at this kind of stuff. There may be people out there who are totally perfect at this. Good for them. One, there's no award, there's no trophy for being the best carnivore. But more importantly, I'm going to give you some names. And I know you've heard all these names before. You guys have probably heard these names too. Dr. Barry. Okay. Of course, we all know Nisha as well, along with him. Bart K. Dr. Sean Baker. Dr. Anthony Chafee. Dr. Kiltz. Okay, so all of these are names that are very well known in this community for their medical knowledge, their scientific knowledge, all of this kind of stuff. And all of them have eaten a carnivore diet or currently eat a carnivore diet or whatever, okay? Dr. Barry talks about the fact he eats mostly red meat. Great. He also talks about the cheat meals that he's had from time to time and how when they came to Nashville and celebrated Nisha's birthday, they had like an alcoholic drink and these things. And he talks about it doesn't make him feel good, but on the rare occasion that he chooses to do that, he has those things. Okay, totally fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He has his diet and his health very well under control. No issues. Nisha has done a carnivore diet as an elimination diet and has chosen to add back in things that make her feel good. So she eats what she now just says is animal-based because it makes people not freak out about terminology and blow up her channel with dumb comments. God bless her for putting up with that. She eats animal-based. So she's chosen to add things back into her diet. And her health is fantastic. You know, she handles her Hashimoto's and all the things that she talks about. No problem. Bart K is a scientist who is very clear on like meat and salt and water is basically the only thing you need. He also talks about the fact that there's been times where he's had pizza and he's had these other kinds of things because he knows it's not good for him, but he doesn't have any of these like severe health issues he's trying to like heal in himself. So he generally is a carnivore, but occasionally admits that it's like there's been things that he's had and he's not beating himself up over it.
Sure.
Okay. Dr. Sean Baker. He is always eating a gigantic steak with a huge knife, and that's what he eats most of the time, is just these great big fatty steaks. I think that's awesome. I would love to have the cutting board and knife that he does and eat some of those steaks that I see him eating. But he's talked about the fact that there's times where there's recipes or maybe like a piece of fruit a couple of times a year or things that he has in special situations. You know, I've seen videos of him sitting down where they're getting ready to make a carnivore recipe of some kind. It's very rare, but occasionally he's had some stuff. Dr. Anthony Chaffee. Everybody knows him for the whole plants are trying to kill you information, right? And he talks about the meat, salt, water being the way and all that kind of stuff. And he's in fantastic shape, professional rugby player, brain surgeon, like just, you know, brilliant. I've seen video of the man recently having some stuff his girlfriend made that was not meat, salt, water.
Yeah.
You know, now he doesn't probably do it very often.
Right.
I'm sure it's a very rare thing. And maybe it was only a bite or two to try it because she made this recipe. I don't know. But that's not perfect meat, salt, water, even though he recommends meat, salt, water as being the optimal thing. He's not being dogmatic about you can't have a little bit of it past your lips or somehow you're not worthy.
Right.
So all of the biggest names that I know of all of the information that I've had that are as close to like, you know, the meat, salt, water or the super strict carnivore or they've done super strict carnivore or whatever, all of them that I just named are not perfect by the standards that some Joe Schmo on social media is beating you up for. Do you really think that whoever that person is on social media is so perfect that they're better than all of the biggest names that do this, that teach people about the health and the well-being that you're going to get as a result of it? Do you really think they're that perfect? And even if they are, what good does it do them to be on social media with no friends, with no tact, with no class? It's like, congratulations. I guess sit in your kitchen by yourself with no one to talk to and your little self-made carnivore trophy.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's stupid.
Right.
It's ridiculous. So I'm not saying that if meat, salt, water is your goal, that that's a bad thing. I think that's fantastic. And sure, maybe there would be optimal health for all people with meat, salt, water. I don't know. I'm not a doctor and none of this is medical advice. But even if it is, being a human being and having progress be your focus over perfection on a daily basis is going to get you so much further and so much more happiness in your life than beating yourself or anybody else up over what isn't perfect. I think it's a really important thing for any one of you watching this video. If you ever feel like I didn't do well enough, this isn't right, that was a bad choice, I'm bad, I feel guilty, any of these things, and especially if somebody else is trying to beat you down and make you feel those things, you got to flip that switch off and say, that's not the way this works anymore. I'm worth more than that. I deserve the happiness and the joy and the confidence that comes from not focusing on perfection, but one day at a time, progress. Progress, 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 a little at a time in a way that is possible for me. And if I'm struggling with it, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. Now, don't make an excuse for it and use it as a reason to go out and just, you know, fly off the handle and eat Chinese food and pizza and, you know, ice cream and all of those other kinds of things. It's not an excuse.
Right.
But it's a realistic understanding. Progress. And if I'm struggling, maybe I bit off more than I can chew.
Every one that you mentioned, in the carnivore space that does meat, salt, water, that, clearly are open, that they, don't do this perfectly all the time, which is great. And, I appreciate their honesty. But it seems that when they do go off of carnivore and they do have something that, they usually wouldn't have or shouldn't have or whatever, it's a choice. It's not them just going off the rails and then that becomes every day now of the week they're having something else. They're at a point in their health journey that they can probably do something like that and go back. So like you said, it's not an excuse, it's a choice.
Yeah.
So if you're craving pizza, that's very different than you saying, oh, I can't handle it and I'm going to go eat a whole pizza by myself and I just can't do it anymore. And then you do that 3 times that week.
Right.
Versus once in a while you go, you know what? I'm going to choose to have this pizza. I probably won't feel very well afterwards. This may stunt my weight loss. It may push me a little bit further away from my goals.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, I would like to have this today. That's a very different outlook on food and how you consume it.
Absolutely.
It's very different.
Absolutely. And that's the mental health and the clarity of mind perspective that you need on food.
Yes.
To be able to let go of this, I'm addicted to this and I need this as a drug. And I can use this as not just fuel for my body, but on occasion, it is kind of a recreational drug in that way.
Sure.
But it's an intentional choice, the same as someone having a drink. Now, there are alcoholics that cannot choose to have a drink because that's a terrible idea.
Right.
If you are a carbaholic and you cannot choose to have carbs or something seed oil or something, whatever, because it's a trigger for you, you have to know that about yourself. That's completely different. But that's also an even better reason than when it's like, I can't have these things because they trigger me. It's an even better reason to not beat yourself up if you are not perfect. Because if you have trigger issues and addiction issues and you beat yourself up, if something is not perfect and you feel guilty and you let somebody else beat you down, guess what? It's going to be a whole lot harder for you to stop. That's why when you go to like addiction recovery type things, which your mom does work with addiction recovery. So, she does things with like addiction and recovery centers. And when you go to those kinds of places, they don't beat those people up for what they're trying to get off of or what they've done. And if they slip up and they have some kind of an issue or they go back to some lifestyle or whatever, they do everything they can to help them out and pull them back out of it kindly, and they try to offer them resources and solutions. Also,
we've talked about this in another health vlog a while back, but talking about just perfection, for example, if you are a smoker and you're trying to quit smoking, when you do that, they give you nicotine patches, which basically takes the level of nicotine, let's say carbs, and it just starts slowly bringing it down over a course of time. They also, make you go see doctors and they put you in classes like therapy if you need it, whatever it is you need to do, but they love them, they support them, and they know that they're addicted to this thing, and they don't just rip it out and go, hey, go cold turkey, even though some people can do that, and that's great. It's proven it does not work for everyone. So therefore, they give them patches and pills, and they slowly bring it down.
Right.
And it's like that's been proven to help people actually stay clean longer and not go back. And so I really think that that's kind of what we're kind of talking about today. But I think it's incredible in our society, just in the world, that's how we treat alcoholics, drug addicts. I mean, name anything else.
Right.
And then in the diet, especially here in America, where we're all pretty much obese, because look at our food system and all of that. It's like here we beat you up if you're fat, or it's like we pick on you, and then it's like then when you try to better yourself, we give you an even harder time.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, man, this is so messed up.
The people in this community that already know about keto and carnivore and are really stable and solid at it, and the ones that are really strict and like whether it's meat, salt, water or super clean keto or whatever, those people are the ones who are like healthy and clean and they've got things figured out and all this kind of stuff. If those people truly are clean the way they say they are, and then they are online bashing everyone else for not being as good at it, that's like the person at the recovery center looking at the drug addict who walks in the front door saying, I need help to get off of meth, and saying, well, you're a piece of trash and you can't do it as good as the rest of us, and you don't deserve to have good health. Just go shoot up some more, you druggy piece of trash. Like, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Which is why when those people come in my comment section, I tell them they're being a trashy human being because that's a worthless way to act. And there are so many people that need help, and we love those people, and we are here to try to help because we needed help. And occasionally we may still for the rest of our lives. None of us is perfect, and there's going to be times where it's going to be like, man, I just really don't feel like doing whatever it is. It may not be my diet. It may be something else in my life. There's going to be days I need support. There's going to be days I need help. We rely on the community, and we rely on our friends and our family and the people that care about us to get us through those moments. And we want to be here and support you guys and have the community that you can rely on as well. And that's why we don't like people coming in here and making comments like that, because it's not about your perfection. You don't have to walk through the door having it already figured out. If you walk through the door having it already figured out, you don't need to be here. None of us would need to be here. Progress over perfection. That's what it's all about. That's why we do this. That's why these health vlogs exist, to try to inspire you guys. And we just want to see you guys succeed. I'm sure we upset a whole bunch of people and hopefully inspired a whole bunch more today. Put it down in the comments. How do you guys feel about this? What do you think about progress over perfection? If you have a goal, what is the specific and achievable, realistic goal? Put that in the comments down below. What is your achievable, realistic goal in maybe a short-term time frame, within a month, 2-3 months? What do you want to do? What is your short-term achievable goal over the next few months that we can all support you in, and that you can then hopefully come back to the comment section in an update video, and maybe you guys can tell us how you achieved it and we can celebrate with you, or you can tell us what was the struggle, and so what can we do to help you make it more achievable, etc., etc. I know for me, over the next few months, I would like to definitely lose some more weight. I have not weighed in a long time, just because I don't really pay that much attention to that, but I would like to lose some more weight. I'm going to go weigh here within the next couple of weeks, and once I'm out of my day job and the cortisol levels all start coming down, I'm going to weigh.
Great.
And I'm going to see where I'm at, and wherever I'm at, I want to lose 20 pounds.
Great.
Within the next 3 months, I would like to lose 20 pounds from that. I want to start incorporating walking. We were talking about this. I want to start walking at least 3 times a week. That doesn't mean I'm just going to start out and for the next 3 months I'm going to walk 3 times a week. I wanted a goal to be that by the end of the next 3 months, I am consistently able to do so without questioning it or wondering, what I'm doing every day.
Right.
I don't know if it's possible or not. We've been talking about it, but if possible, I think it would be fun to maybe try to do 30 days at some point within the next anywhere from 3 to 6 months. I would like to work up to do 30 days of a lion diet. Just do red meat and salt and water, and I may add coffee in there, I don't know yet. But red meat, salt, and water, so that all the people that tell me I'm not a real carnivore can shut up, so I can tell them that I did it. And then if I notice things improving and I want to stick with certain things, great. And if I don't notice any huge improvements, then I can be like, okay, maybe if I gave it more time, but right now I'm not seeing a huge difference. Whatever. Let me do some research with my own body by doing it and see how I feel.
It's great.
Those are 3 things that I would really like to work on, and I think they're all achievable within the next 3 months, or with the lion diet thing, depending on our schedule, the next 3 to 6 months. We'll kind of see how that goes. That's going to be a working up to that kind of thing. I don't want to just wake up one day and suddenly I'm only eating red meat. I'm going to work towards that and get to where I can actually do that. So yeah. So those are some goals for me. Do you have any thoughts on goals that you have, or anything that you would like to do?
Every 3 months I sit down and I have a list of goals. I think within the next few months I'd like to lose 10 more pounds if possible. I think that's obtainable, and to do that we talked about walking together. Now that you're out of your day job, I've kind of already started that. So today, for example, I walked, Mel and I, we took the dog, and I walked by myself. I walked 3 miles. Great. So kind of walking more, want to lose a bit more weight. Cutting back on coffee, not cutting coffee out.
Just
reducing. I love coffee so much, and I feel like I kind of just drink too much of it sometimes. So kind of a thing where if I feel like I've slept well and I just don't need it, don't have it, or don't have as much, and just kind of trying to control that. And then other than that, just I've been kind of playing with certain foods. Kind of after doing carnivore for a month, it's like I've kind of added a little bit of things in occasionally, and just kind of realizing some for example, I noticed broccoli I had broccoli all the time when I was keto, went carnivore, and then I added broccoli back in. Don't think it works for me. Just kind of taking note of things like that, where it's like when I do add something new in, it's like how do I feel the next day or two? So kind of working on elimination stuff. But those are my goals for the next, say 1 to 3 months.
There we go.
So
there we go. Well, there's our health goals for our keto, carnivore, proper human diet sort of spectrum of things.
Yeah.
What are you guys going to work on? What would you like to see yourselves achieve realistically within the next 1 to 3 months?
Yes.
Put that in the comments down below. Let us know how we can support you. And we have a whole bunch more of this kind of stuff coming on this channel. We're going to be starting the Monday motivation live streams soon, where I'm going to be doing live streams on this Chris Cooking Nashville Studios channel. And we're going to hang out. Ash may join us. She may not. I don't know. Depends on what she's doing on Monday mornings, but I'll be putting out more details about that soon. So be watching this channel and my regular Chris Cooking Nashville channel for information on the Monday Motivation live streams. And we're going to just be doing some really interesting research-based videos. We got a lot more cool stuff that we're going to uncover, and we're going to get the interviews started soon with some of your favorite keto and carnivore people, hopefully. So we've got a bunch of cool things. We've got all the Chris Cooking Nashville stuff, which is going to be growing because being out of the day job, it's going to be wild. We got a lot of stuff coming. So that's what's coming. We would love to hear from you guys. We love every single one of you. This is Chris Cooking Nashville and the beautiful Ash Taylor. You guys eat your meat, love your life, find progress over perfection, and we're going to see you guys in the kitchen and at the dining room table for more health vlogs and more recipes.
Boom. Good job. Do you think we're weird?
Yes.
Okay, good.